Adversarial nation-states have pivoted their cyber warfare campaigns away from hardened military targets. They are now focusing on civilian soft targets with high systemic importance: municipal utility providers, local governments, and civilian federal agencies. These entities operate at a dangerous intersection. Modern operational requirements force them to converge legacy operational technology, the analog systems running physical infrastructure, with modern IT networks. This creates an expansive, fragmented attack surface. A single municipal utility might run control systems on legacy Windows servers, while hosting web interfaces on modern Linux clusters, all while managing chronic budgetary constraints. To exploit this, advanced persistent threats have moved past easily identifiable malware binaries. Instead, they use living-off-the-land techniques, utilizing native system tools like PowerShell or Python to execute their attacks. These attacks are now integrating unconstrained artificial general intelligence. This allows the threat to dynamically rewrite its attack path in real time, masking lateral movement as standard administrative behavior. The objective is rarely immediate financial gain. By embedding these threats within utility grids or local government mainframes, adversaries establish strategic sleeper cells capable of disabling critical infrastructure during a geopolitical crisis. Current defense models used by major vendors like Symantec and CrowdStrike are rooted in semantics. They attempt to identify malicious activity by understanding what a piece of code is doing, or by matching it against a cloud-hosted dictionary of known threat signatures. This approach fails against ATI-driven polymorphism. When a legacy system looks for known semantic patterns, an adversary simply alters the shape of the attack code to bypass those established boundaries. In complex environments, semantic solutions compensate by generating massive volumes of telemetry. This inherently produces severe alert fatigue, leading human analysts to ignore critical warnings due to the volume of false positives. These systems also rely on cloud detonation or human-in-the-loop validation. As this text details, this introduces an operational latency ranging from minutes to hours. Because of this latency, legacy systems often default to passive reporting. They hesitate to autonomously sever network connections for fear of disrupting legitimate operations, leaving the door open for rapid lateral movement. In the context of a high-speed data wiper attack on a SCADA system, a 5-minute response time is functionally the same as having no defense. To stop threats that evade semantic understanding, defense mechanisms must transition to topological mathematics. This is the operational architecture of the Unified Tensor Control Plane, specifically the PTCP omnibus cage. Rather than asking, "What is this process doing?" the system asks, "What is the mathematical shape of this process tree over time?" This shape is determined by evaluating the multidimensional relationship between a machine's current I/O rates, its network connections, and its process memory allocations. By focusing on the geometry of system behavior, the defense becomes agnostic to the malware's signature, its origin, or the underlying operating system. The system maps endpoint behavior across a dual horizon matrix. The first component is the genesis horizon, which establishes the historical baseline of the node's normal topological state. This baseline is calculated entirely locally. There is zero reliance on the cloud to determine what normal geometry looks like for this specific machine. The second component is the adaptive horizon. This provides a real-time, instantaneous projection of the system's current behavior, mapping live metrics against the historical baseline. The system continuously calculates the mathematical delta between these horizons. This delta is known as the R-score. Consider an AGI-driven ransomware attack beginning mass disk encryption. The adaptive horizon registers a sudden, massive spike in process activity, stretching and shattering the R-score threshold. When that geometric threshold breaks, the system identifies an ontological breach. It does not need to verify known signatures to know the behavior is malicious. Milliseconds after an R-score breach, the agent engages the pi-omega geometric kill switch. Instead of waiting for a cloud response, this actuator programmatically modifies the node's connectivity and process permissions at the operating system level. On Windows, it executes unhookable low-level calls to NetSage and the Windows filtering platform. This creates an airtight local quarantine while terminating rogue process trees. As a privileged native service, standard tools used in lot-lol attacks cannot override this quarantine. On Linux, kernel-level eBPF hooks manipulate IP tables, instantly severing network routing and freezing the attacker's container. This localized containment continues to function, even if the adversary manages to sever the endpoint from the wider internet. Autonomous, local actuation strips the adversary of their speed advantage, trapping them in a localized quarantine before lateral movement can occur. This comparative analysis highlights the stark capability gap between legacy semantic solutions and the topological model. By removing cloud dependency, response latency collapses from hours down to milliseconds. Topological evaluation isolates the mathematical signature of data destruction, which remains constant even as the underlying code is altered. Polymorphic variations do not change the geometric shape of the attack's behavior. Securing critical infrastructure requires moving past previous generation epistemologies that rely on known definitions. Legacy tools often stream gigabytes of raw telemetry to a third-party cloud, creating an inherent espionage vulnerability for federal and municipal networks. By processing the dual horizon mathematics entirely on device, that raw telemetry remains within the organization's control. Only lightweight JSON alerts are forwarded to the centralized monitoring dashboard, preserving local data sovereignty. Deploying autonomous topological containment shifts the asymmetry of cyber warfare back in the defender's favor. It restricts an initial breach to a single endpoint, preventing the lateral movement required to compromise the wider network infrastructure. This comparative analysis highlights the stark capability gap of legacy solutions. By removing cloud dependency, response latency collapses to milliseconds. Topological evaluation isolates the mathematical signature of data destruction. Polymorphic variations do not change the attack's geometric shape. Securing critical infrastructure requires moving past previous generation epistemologies that rely on known definitions. Legacy tools often stream gigabytes of raw telemetry to a third-party cloud, creating an inherent espionage vulnerability for federal and municipal networks. By processing the dual horizon mathematics entirely on device, that raw telemetry remains within the organization's control. Only lightweight JSON alerts are forwarded to the centralized monitoring dashboard, preserving local data sovereignty. Deploying autonomous topological containment shifts the asymmetry of cyber warfare back in the defender's favor. It restricts an initial breach to a single endpoint, preventing the lateral movement required to compromise the wider network infrastructure.